The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. 17 colonies spread across distant worlds, each one a testament to human determination and courage. The United Earth Coalition governed these scattered children of Earth with wisdom and patience. Peace had lasted for generations. War was a memory from history books, something their ancestors had done before they learned better ways. Commander Daniel Harris stood on the bridge of the starship, resolute, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the endless darkness of space through the main viewport. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm eyes that had seen many wonders during his 30 years in the fleet. Today would bring the greatest wonder of all. Commander, sensors are picking up unknown vessels, said Lieutenant Commander Amy Grant from her station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp features and sharper instincts. Her fingers danced across the console as data flooded in. 12 ships. Configuration unknown. They are definitely not human. Daniel felt his heart skip. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about since they first looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. He had trained for this scenario countless times, but nothing could truly prepare a person for such a moment. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. Broadcast our standard greeting package. The package contained mathematical sequences. Images of Earth and its people, music and messages of peace in every human language. Scientists had spent decades crafting it, hoping it would communicate friendly intentions to any intelligence that received it. The alien ships did not respond. They simply drifted closer, their strange angular hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. Daniel counted them again. 12 vessels, each one larger than the Resolute. Their design was harsh and aggressive, all sharp edges and weapon ports. Still no response, Commander, Amy reported. But I am detecting massive energy signatures from their weapon systems. They are charging something. Daniel opened his mouth to order evasive maneuvers, but before he could speak, a transmission cut through the silence. The universal translator worked for several seconds, processing the alien language into something humans could understand. A face appeared on the view screen. It was not human. The creature had pale blue skin stretched tight over angular bones, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth filled with small, sharp teeth. It wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols that meant nothing to Daniel. Primitive species, the alien said. Its voice was cold and filled with contempt. I am High Prelate Zoreth of the Valdari Dominion. You have entered space that belongs to us. Your colonies sit on worlds we have claimed. You will surrender immediately and submit to Dominion rule, or you will be destroyed. Daniel took a deep breath. High Prelate, we mean no disrespect. We did not know this space was claimed. Perhaps we can discuss territorial boundaries and reach a peaceful agreement. There is no need for threats between our peoples. Zoreth made a sound that might have been laughter. Discuss. Negotiate? The Dominion does not negotiate with lesser species. We have ruled this sector for 3,000 years. 6 species serve under our banner, each one brought to heel through conquest. You will join them, or you will cease to exist. You have 30 standard days to surrender. Use this time wisely. The transmission ended. Daniel stared at the blank screen, his mind racing through possibilities. None of them were good. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, he said quietly. Priority Alpha. 3 days later, the Valdari demonstrated exactly how serious their threat was. The colony on Kepler 44b is home to 14 million people. It was a beautiful world of vast oceans and green continents, the crown jewel of human expansion. Families had built lives there across 5 generations. Children played in parks beneath alien trees that humanity had learned to cultivate. Scientists studied the unique ecosystem. Artists drew inspiration from the twin moons that rose each evening. The Valdari fleet arrived without warning. They did not demand surrender. They did not issue ultimatums. They simply opened fire. Daniel watched the footage from the Resolute, with tears streaming down his face. The planetary defense grid, designed to protect against asteroids and minor threats, lasted exactly 4 minutes against Valdari weapons. Then the bombardment began. Cities vanished beneath columns of fire. Oceans boiled into steam. The atmosphere itself caught flame. 14 million voices screamed out across emergency channels, begging for help that could not arrive in time. Then, one by one, the voices fell silent. The entire attack was broadcast across Valdari space as entertainment. Commentary accompanied the destruction, with Valdari announcers making jokes about the primitive humans who thought they could challenge the Dominion. Billions of aliens watched and laughed as humanity burned on Earth. President Catherine Moore called an emergency session of the Global Council. Leaders from every nation gathered in the Great Hall, their faces pale with shock and grief. No one spoke for a long time. What words could capture such horror? Admiral Gregory Cole, commander of Earth's Defense Forces, finally broke the silence. He was an old soldier, his face weathered by decades of service. He had never expected to fight a real war. Now he had no choice. Our military assessment is grim, he said. The Valdari possess technology far beyond ours. Their fleet numbers over 2,000 warships. We have 47 combat-capable vessels. Their weapons can destroy a planet in hours. Ours can barely scratch their shields. By every conventional measure, we cannot win this war. A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. Some called for surrender. Others demanded retaliation they knew was impossible. Fear filled the room like a living thing. President Moore raised her hand for silence. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen humanity through 3 major crises. This would be her 4th. Admiral Cole, she said, you said by conventional measures. Does that mean there are unconventional options? Cole met her gaze. Perhaps. The Valdari are powerful, but they are also arrogant. They have not faced a serious challenge in centuries. They expect us to fight the way they fight, or to surrender. They do not know humans the way we know ourselves. He pulled up a display showing Earth and its colonies. We have 27 days before their deadline. That is not much time. But humanity has done impossible things before, when our backs were against the wall. We walked on the moon 60 years after inventing flight. We cured diseases that killed millions within decades. We built starships in a single generation. His voice hardened. The Valdari see us as primitives. Let them. They have no idea what primitives can do when they are fighting for survival. President Moore nodded slowly. She looked around the room at the frightened faces of humanity's leaders. Then she made the decision that would change history. No surrender, she said. We will not bow to those who murder our children for sport. If the Valdari want war, then war they shall have. And we will show them exactly what humanity is capable of. The room erupted in chaos, but Catherine Moore remained still at the center of the storm. 27 days. It was not enough time. It would have to be enough. Across the galaxy, High Prelate Zorith received reports of the human response and dismissed them with contempt. The primitives would learn their place soon enough. They always did. He had no idea what was coming. The deadline came and went. Earth sent no message of surrender. The Valdari expected fear, begging, perhaps a desperate attempt at negotiation. Instead, they received silence. High Prelate Zoroth found this amusing. The primitives were too scared to even respond. He ordered the extermination, fleet to prepare for departure. What he did not see was what happened behind that silence. On Earth, something extraordinary occurred in the days following the destruction of Kepler-4b. Old enemies became allies overnight. Nations that had spent centuries arguing over borders and resources suddenly found those disagreements meaningless. Corporations that had competed ruthlessly for profit now shared technology and facilities freely. Every human who could contribute something did so without question. Dr. Lisa Monroe stood at the center of this transformation. She was the head of the Advanced Research Division, a brilliant physicist who had spent her career studying theoretical concepts that most people considered impossible. Now those theories would be tested. The Valdari have a 3,000-year head start on us, she told her assembled team in a vast underground laboratory. Scientists and engineers from every nation filled the room, their faces exhausted but determined. They developed their technology slowly, methodically, building on generations of careful research. We do not have that luxury. She pulled up schematics on the main display. But we have something they do not. We have desperation, and we have the unique human ability to make impossible leaps when we have no other choice. History shows us doing this again and again. Now we must do it one more time. The project she outlined would have seemed like fantasy a month earlier. Faster than light drives that could outpace anything the Faldari possessed. Weapons that operated on principles the enemy had never imagined. Shield technology that bent the laws of physics in ways that should not have been possible. Captain Ethan Brooks volunteered to test the first prototype of the fold drive. He was a pilot with 20 years of experience, known for his steady nerves and quick. Thinking when Lisa Monroe explained the risks, he simply shrugged. If it works, we have a chance, he said. If it does not work, we are all dead anyway. Seems like an easy choice to me. The test took place 11 days after the project began. 11 days to develop technology that should have taken centuries. The engineering teams had worked in shifts around the clock, sleeping in their laboratories, eating at their stations, pushing their minds and bodies past every limit. Nathan climbed into the cockpit of the small test vessel. His hands were steady as he ran through the pre-flight checklist. Through the viewport, he could see Lisa Monroe watching from the observation deck. She looked terrified, but she gave him a thumbs up. Activating full drive in 3, 2, 1. The universe bent around him. Colors that had no names flooded his vision. He felt himself stretched across impossible distances, his atoms scattered and reassembled in the same instant. Then suddenly, it was over. He checked his position. The test was designed to move him from Earth orbit to Mars orbit, a journey that would normally take months. His instruments showed he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The entire trip had taken less than 1 second. It works, he said into the communication system, his voice shaking slightly. The fold drive works. On Earth, cheers erupted in laboratories and command centers around the world. They had done the impossible. Now they had to do it again and again. While the scientists worked on technology, Sergeant Maria Santos worked on tactics. She was a ground forces veteran with combat experience from Earth's last minor conflicts, and she had spent years studying military history from every culture. Now that knowledge would prove invaluable. The Valdari fight in rigid formations, she explained to her assembled troops. Their tactics have not changed in over 1,000 years because they have never needed to change. Every enemy they faced tried to meet them strength against strength and failed. We will not make that mistake. She introduced concepts the Faldari had never encountered: guerrilla warfare, misdirection, psychological operations. The willingness to sacrifice position for advantage to appear weak when strong and strong when weak. Human military history was filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through cunning and determination. Those lessons would be their weapons now. They expect us to be afraid, Maria told her soldiers. And we are afraid. But fear does not stop humans. It never has. We feel the fear, and we act anyway. That is something the Faldari cannot understand, and it will be their downfall. In shipyards across human space, workers labored without rest to retrofit existing vessels with new technology. The fold drive was miniaturized and installed in every ship capable of carrying it. New weapons were mounted alongside old ones. Shields were upgraded with prototypes that had not even finished testing. Admiral Gregory Cole coordinated the effort from Earth Command, a massive facility buried deep beneath a mountain range. He slept 2 hours a night and survived on coffee and determination. Maps and tactical displays covered every wall, showing the positions of Valdari forces and potential targets. We cannot match their numbers, he told his commanders during one of their many planning sessions. So we will not try. Instead of one big battle, we will fight 1,000 small ones. We will be everywhere at once, striking where they are weak, vanishing before they can respond. We will make them fear shadows. The plan was insane. It required perfect coordination, incredible bravery, and technology that barely existed. It was exactly the kind of desperate gamble that humans had been making since the first cave dweller. Picked up a rock to fight a predator, President Catherine's Moore visited the research facilities personally during the final days of preparation. She spoke with scientists, engineers, soldiers, and pilots. She shook hands and offered encouragement. She made sure everyone knew that their work mattered, that the future of humanity rested on their shoulders. On the 27th day, she received word that the first phase of the plan was ready. Not everything was complete. Some systems were held together with hope and improvisation. Some weapons had never been fully tested. But there was no more time. The Voldari extermination fleet had begun its journey toward Earth. "Is it enough?" she asked Admiral Cole. The old soldier looked at the data on his screens. Ships and weapons and strategies that existed only because humans refused to accept the impossible. "Honestly, I do not know. By any logical analysis, we should still lose. We are outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in almost every measurable way." He turned to face her, and for the first time since the crisis began, he smiled. "But logic has never stopped us before. The Voldari made one critical mistake when they attacked us. They thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were wrong. They have never faced an enemy like us, and they have no idea what is coming." President Moore nodded. It was time to send a message. Across human space, soldiers and civilians alike prepared for what came next. They were afraid. They knew the odds. They understood that many of them would not survive what was about to happen. But they stood ready anyway, because that was what humans did. When the universe pushed them to the edge of extinction, they pushed back. The Voldari wanted war. Humanity was about to show them what that word truly meant. On the 45th day since first contact, something unprecedented happened across Voldari space. Every communication channel, every broadcast frequency, every screen on every ship and station and planet suddenly displayed the same image. A human face appeared where no human face should be possible. The Voldari encryption that protected their networks had been considered unbreakable. Their engineers had spent generations perfecting it. Human technicians cracked it in 3 days. Admiral Gregory Cole stood in a simple room with a plain gray backdrop. He wore his dress uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. His face showed no fear, no anger, no desperation, only calm certainty. "To the Voldari Dominion," he began, his voice carrying across light years of space. "I am Admiral Gregory Cole of the United Earth Coalition. 45 days ago, you came to us with demands. You told us to surrender or be destroyed. You gave us no choice, no opportunity for peace." He paused, letting the silence stretch. Across the Dominion, billions of aliens watched with curiosity and contempt. What could this primitive possibly have to say? When we attempted diplomacy, you ignored us. When we asked for time to consider, you responded by destroying our colony on Kepler 44b. 14 million of our people died that day. Men, women, children, all burned to ash while your people watched and laughed. His voice remained steady, but something hard entered his eyes. You broadcast their deaths as entertainment. You made jokes as our cities burned. You expected us to be broken by this atrocity. You expected us to crawl to you on our knees, begging for mercy. Admiral Cole leaned slightly forward, and when he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but carried an edge of steel that made even the most confident Voldari commanders feel a chill. "We considered your offer carefully. We weighed our options. We looked at your fleet and your weapons and your 3,000 years of conquest, and we made our decision." He straightened. "Our answer is no. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will not bow to those who murder our children for sport." The pause that followed lasted only a second, but it seemed to stretch for an eternity. "You chose war, High Prelate Zorath. Since you chose war, let us show you how it is done." The transmission ended. Throughout Voldari space, reactions varied from amusement to mild irritation. High Prelate Zorath watched the recording 3 times, each viewing bringing fresh waves of contempt. The primitives had spirit, he would give them that. It would make their eventual destruction more entertaining. "Order the extermination fleet to increase speed," he commanded. "I want Earth burned to ash within 20 days. And find whoever allowed them to access our communications. They will be executed slowly. His commanders rushed to obey. None of them noticed the small blip on their sensors until it was too late. Lieutenant Commander Kevin Price had been waiting in the darkness between stars for 6 hours. His strike force consisted of 12 ships, each one equipped with a full drive and weapons that had not existed 2 months ago. They floated silent and cold, running on minimal power, invisible to Valdari sensors. The Valdari staging ground was a massive facility that served as the gathering point for the extermination fleet. 300 warships had assembled there, preparing for the final journey to Earth. It was the largest concentration of military force in Dominion history, and the Valdari were proud of its overwhelming power. All ships. "This is Price," Kevin said over the encrypted channel. "The Admiral has sent the message. It is time to deliver our response. Activate full drives on my mark. Remember your targets. Strike fast, strike hard, and fold out before they can react." 3, 2, 1, mark. 12 ships vanished from their hidden position and reappeared in the heart of the Valdari fleet. The enemy had exactly 2 seconds of warning before hell was unleashed. The weapons humanity had developed were unlike anything the Valdari had encountered. Plasma torpedoes that phased through shields. Kinetic rounds accelerated to near light speed. Electronic warfare systems that turned Valdar computers against their operators. All of it deployed simultaneously across the entire staging ground. Kevin Price targeted the flagship himself. His ship screamed between massive Valdari vessels, too fast for their weapons to track. He fired everything he had at the command section, watched it erupt in flames, and then activated his fold drive to escape before the debris could touch him. The entire attack lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds. When it was over, 300 Valdari warships were destroyed or disabled. The extermination fleet had been eliminated before it could even leave the staging ground. Human casualties were 0. High Prelate Zorith received the news in stunned silence. His advisors showed him the footage captured by surviving Valdari satellites. He watched human ships appear from nowhere, destroy everything in sight, and vanish without a trace. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. How? He demanded. How did they develop such technology in mere weeks? How did they know the location of our staging ground? How did they penetrate our defenses? No one could answer. For the first time in 3,000 years, Valdari Dominion faced an enemy they did not understand. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. People filled the streets in spontaneous celebration. The impossible had been achieved. The enemy, who had seemed invincible, had been bloodied. Hope, which had seemed so distant, suddenly felt real. Admiral Cole allowed himself a small smile when he received Kevin Price's report. But he knew the war was far from over. The Valdari still had thousands of ships. They still had vast resources and many subject species under their command. This victory was just the beginning. "Send the second wave," he ordered. "Target their supply depots in sectors 7 through 12. The Valdari like to fight wars of attrition. Let us see how they handle a war of speed and precision." President Moore watched the operations unfold from the command center. She thought about the 14 million who had died on Kepler 442b. And she thought about the billions who still lived on Earth and its remaining colonies. This war had been forced upon humanity, but they would fight it on their own terms. Commander Daniel Harris received the news aboard the Resolute. Now retrofitted with a full drive and new weapons, Amy Grant stood beside him, her face showing the same mix of relief and determination that he felt. "The message has been sent," she said quietly. The whole galaxy heard it. Daniel nodded. The human declaration would spread far beyond Valdari space. Every species in the galaxy would learn what had happened here. They would learn that humanity, attacked without provocation, had chosen to fight rather than submit. They would learn that the Valdari were not invincible. "This is just the beginning," he said. "The Valdari will not accept defeat easily. They will come at us with everything they have." Amy smiled grimly. "Then we will be ready. We did not start this war, but we will finish it." Across the stars, the message played on repeat, a calm human voice delivering words that would echo through history. Since you chose war, let us show you how it is done. Humanity was showing them. The Faldari Dominion had conquered 6 species over 3,000 years. Each conquest followed the same pattern. They would identify a weaker civilization, demand submission, and crush any resistance with overwhelming force. The conquered species would be absorbed into the Dominion, their culture erased, their people reduced to servants. They expected humanity to fight the same way all their previous enemies had fought. Fleet against fleet, army against army, until one side was ground to dust. The Faldari had more ships, better technology, and vast experience. By their calculations, humanity should have been defeated in weeks. Humanity did not follow their calculations, Commander. Michelle Torres led Operation Blackout, the first strike against the Faldari homeworld itself. Her team consisted of 12 specialists, each one trained in infiltration and sabotage. They did not bring weapons capable of mass destruction. They brought something more dangerous, knowledge of how Faldari systems worked. Their ship folded into the system at the very edge, where sensors were thin. They drifted for 3 days on minimal power, moving closer to the heavily defended planet with agonizing patience. Michelle spent those days reviewing the plan, looking for weaknesses, preparing for every possible scenario. On the 4th day, they struck. The Faldari power grid was a masterpiece of engineering. Built over centuries and considered completely secure, Michelle's team found its weak points in an hour. They did not destroy the grid. They simply turned it off. For 72 hours, the Faldari homeworld went dark. Lights failed. Computers crashed. Communication systems collapsed. Transportation networks ground to a halt. Billions of Faldari experienced something they had never known: helplessness. No shots were fired. No lives were taken. Michelle and her team folded out before anyone knew they had been there. But the message was clear. We can reach you anywhere. We can hurt you in ways you never imagined, and you cannot stop us. High Prelate Zoroth raged when he learned what had happened. He demanded his engineers find the infiltrators. He ordered increased security on all critical systems. He was so focused on preventing another attack that he did not see the real purpose of Operation Blackout. It was a distraction. While the Faldari scrambled to protect their homeworld, Dr. Benjamin Clark deployed his biological weapons against their agricultural systems. He was a gentleman, a researcher, who had spent his life studying ways to increase crop yields and end hunger. Now he used that knowledge for a darker purpose. The agents he released did not kill anyone directly. They attacked the engineered plants that the Faldari had developed over millennia, the crops that fed their massive population. Within weeks, harvests across the Dominion began to fail. Famine loomed on the horizon, but Benjamin was not a monster. Even in war, he could not bring himself to cause suffering without offering an alternative. Along with the biological agents, he developed a cure. Human ships delivered this cure to any Faldari world that declared neutrality, along with food supplies to replace what had been lost. You do not have to be our enemies, the human envoys explained to confused Faldari governors. You did not choose this war. Your leaders did. Stay out of the fighting, and we will help you survive what comes next. 17 worlds accepted the offer within the first month. They were not allies, not yet. But they were no longer enemies, and that was enough. The Faldari command structure could not adapt. For 3,000 years, they had fought wars of attrition, grinding down enemies through superior numbers and resources. Human tactics were completely alien to them. Every time they prepared for one strategy, humanity deployed something entirely different. Pilot Officer Christine Adams became a legend during the Battle of Zareth Prime. Her squadron was ambushed by a Faldari force 10 times their size. Outnumbered and outgunned, most commanders would have retreated. Christine attacked! Her fighter screamed through the Faldari formation, drawing fire away from her wingmates. She destroyed 5 enemy vessels in the first pass, using maneuvers that Faldari pilots considered suicidal. When her weapons were exhausted and her ship was damaged beyond repair, she aimed directly at the bridge of the Faldari Fleet Admiral's dreadnought. The enemy commander saw her coming. He assumed it was a desperate ramming attack, a final act of defiance from a defeated enemy. He was half right. Christine ejected at the last possible second, her escape pod shooting away from the collision course. Her fighter continued on, crashing through the dreadnought's bridge at incredible speed. The admiral died instantly. His fleet, suddenly leaderless, fell into chaos. Her wingmates recovered Christine 3 hours later, alive but badly injured. She spent 2 months in medical care before returning to duty. The Valdari studied the battle footage for weeks, trying to understand how anyone could be willing to sacrifice everything yet clever enough to survive. They found no answers. High Prelate Zoroth called for reinforcements from the outer colonies of the Dominion. He expected his subject species to send their fleets as they always had. He expected obedience. He received silence. Human agents had already been there. They appeared on 100 worlds with a simple message. The Dominion is falling. You do not have to fall with it. Remain neutral, and humanity will protect you from retaliation. Join us, and together we can build something better than the empire of fear you have lived under. The subject species had served the Valdari for centuries, their loyalty maintained through terror and force. But terror only works when you believe your masters are invincible. The message from Earth, played on repeat across the galaxy, had cracked that belief. Human victories had shattered it. One by one, the subject species began to question their masters. Some declared neutrality. Others simply stopped responding to Valdari commands. A few brave souls actively assisted the human war effort, providing intelligence and resources. The Dominion, built on subjugation and fear, began to crumble from within. Admiral Gregory Cole watched the strategic display with something approaching wonder. Months ago, they had faced extinction. Now the enemy was retreating on multiple fronts. Their supply lines cut, their allies deserting, their confidence destroyed. "We are winning," Amy Grant said quietly. Standing beside Commander Daniel Harris on the bridge of the Resolute, "I did not believe it was possible, but we are actually winning." Daniel nodded slowly. The Valdari made a mistake that conquerors throughout history have made. They assumed that because they were strong, everyone else was weak. They never imagined that the species they attacked would fight back with everything they had. He looked at the stars through the viewport, thinking about all the humans who had died to make this victory possible. Kepler 442b was still a burned ruin. Many brave soldiers and pilots had given their lives in the fighting. The cost had been enormous, but humanity was still standing, still fighting, still showing the galaxy what they were capable of. "The war is not over yet," he said. High Prelate Zoroth still has forces loyal to him. He will not surrender easily. Amy smiled grimly. "Then we will have to convince him." One battle at a time, across the former Dominion, the tide had turned. Species that had lived in fear for generations began to hope. The message from Earth played on every frequency, a reminder of what was possible when you refused to accept defeat. Humanity had not started this war, but they were determined to finish it. 1 year had passed since the first Valdari ships appeared on human sensors. 1 year since High Prelate Zoroth had demanded humanity's surrender. 1 year since the destruction of Kepler 442b, the 14 million souls who called it home. Now, Zoroth stood in the ruins of his command center on the Valdar homeworld. The great windows that had once overlooked a glittering city were shattered. The screens that had displayed his conquests were dark. The servants who had attended his every need had fled. He was alone with his defeat. Human forces had not invaded with the overwhelming fury he expected. They had not bombarded his cities or slaughtered his people. Instead, they had simply made it impossible for him to continue fighting. Every shipyard was disabled. Every fleet was scattered or destroyed. Every ally had abandoned him or actively joined the humans. The Dominion that had ruled for 3,000 years existed now only in memory. A shuttle descended through the broken skylight, its human design unmistakable. Admiral Gregory Cole emerged, accompanied by a small honor guard. He walked across the rubble-strewn floor with the steady pace of a man who had all the time in the world. He carried no weapons. He did not need them. Zoroth watched him approach with a mixture of hatred and bewilderment. This human, this primitive creature, from a species that had barely left its home planet, had destroyed everything he had built. How was it possible? "Hi, Prelate," Cole said, stopping a few meters away. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "The war is over." Zorth straightened, trying to maintain some dignity despite everything. "Then finish it. Kill me. Burn my world as we burned yours. Take your revenge." Cole shook his head slowly. "That is not why I am here." He gestured, and his guards produced a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with the former Dominion territories highlighted in different colors. Where once there had been a single unified empire, now there were dozens of independent regions. "You expected us to fight the way you fight," Cole said. "You expected us to meet strength with strength until one side was crushed. That is not our way." He looked directly into Zoreth's 4 eyes. "We did not come to the stars to build an empire. We came because we were curious, because we wanted to explore, because we dreamed of meeting other forms of life and learning from them. You took that dream and turned it into a nightmare. You forced us to become something we never wanted to be." Zoroth said nothing. What was there to say? "But even in war, we tried to remember who we were," Cole continued. "We did not exterminate your subject species. We did not destroy your homeworld. We gave your enemies the chance to become something more than conquered peoples. Now we are offering you the same chance." He produced a document and laid it on a broken table between them. "The Valdari Dominion ends today, but the Valdari people do not have to end with it. These are our terms. Your species will govern itself, like all the others. You will have a seat on the new Galactic Council, with the same voice as everyone else. No more and no less. The Age of Empires is over." Zorth stared at the document. He had expected death or slavery. He had prepared himself for the humiliation of watching his people suffer as he had made others suffer. This was something he could not understand. "Why?" he asked. His voice cracked with confusion. "We murdered your people. We tried to destroy you. Why would you offer us peace?" Cole was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of everything humanity had endured.
Ow.
"Because we learned something from this war. Hatred breeds hatred. Conquest breeds resentment. Every empire built on fear eventually crumbles. We do not want to rule the galaxy. High Prelate. We want to live in it, peacefully, alongside everyone else. That includes you." He gestured at the ruins around them. "Look at what your 3,000 years of domination built. Enemies on every border. Subject species waiting for the chance to rebel. A military so focused on conquest that it could not adapt to a new kind of threat. Is that the legacy you want for your people?" Zorth had no answer. Everything he had believed, everything he had been taught since childhood, lay in ruins as surely as his command center. "You have a choice," Cole said. "Sign this document, and the Valdari become part of something new. Refuse, and we leave. We will not force you. But if you refuse, you will face your former subject species alone. They remember what you did to them. Without our protection, without a place in the new order, how long do you think the Valdari will survive?" It was not a threat. It was simply the truth. Zorath picked up the document with trembling hands. He read the terms 3 times, searching for hidden traps or conditions. He found none. Humanity was offering exactly what they claimed. Nothing more and nothing less. He signed. The ceremony was held 1 month later on a space station, constructed specifically for the occasion. Representatives from every species in the region gathered to witness the birth of the Galactic Council. Humans, Valdari, and the 6 former subject species all had equal seats at the table, Commander. Daniel Harris watched from the observation deck of the Resolute, now serving as an escort vessel for the human diplomatic delegation. Lieutenant Commander Amy Grant stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "After everything that has happened, can all these species really work together?" Daniel considered the question carefully. Through the viewport, he could see ships from a dozen different civilizations floating peacefully alongside each other. A year ago, some of those ships had been trying to kill humans. Now they exchanged greetings and formed joint patrols. "I think it has a chance," he said finally. "The old way failed. The Dominion proved that empires built on fear always fall eventually. Maybe this new way will work better. He paused, remembering the message that had started everything. And if anyone threatens this peace, they know what they will face. Every species in the galaxy heard our message. Every species saw what we did to the Valdari when they attacked us. That lesson will not be forgotten quickly. Amy nodded. We did not want to fight. We were forced into it, and that is exactly why we won. Daniel turned to face her. The Valdari had conquered 6 species over 3,000 years. They were good at war, but we were fighting for survival. We had no choice but to win or die. That desperation drove us to innovate, to adapt, to push beyond every limit. The Valdari never faced an enemy like that before. President Catherine Moore gave a speech at the signing ceremony. She spoke about the losses humanity had suffered. 14 million who died on Kepler 4 for 2b, the soldiers who gave their lives in the fighting. She spoke about the fear and desperation of those early days when extinction seemed inevitable. Then she spoke about hope. We did not seek this war, she said. We did not want it. When the Valdari came to us with demands, we asked for peace. When they destroyed our colony, we mourned our dead and prepared to fight. We had no choice. But even in our darkest moments, we tried to remember what we were fighting for. She looked around the assembly. At representatives of species that had been enemies and were now partners, we were fighting for the right to exist. The right to explore the stars in peace. The right to meet new forms of life and learn from each other rather than conquer each other. That is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not dominion, but friendship. Not submission, but cooperation. Her voice grew strong. The message we sent 1 year ago still echoes across the stars. We told the Valdari that since they chose war, we would show them how it was done. We kept that promise. But today, we send a different message. We prefer peace. We prefer understanding. We prefer building together rather than destroying each other. She paused, letting her words sink in. But remember this. If anyone threatens the peace we have built, if anyone attacks the innocent or tries to build a new empire of fear, they will face the same response the Valdari faced. Humanity does not start wars, but we know how to finish them, the assembly applauded. Across the galaxy, the broadcast was watched by billions of beings of every species. A new era had begun. Daniel Harris returned to his duties aboard the Resolute, now part of a joint peacekeeping fleet. The ship that had witnessed first contact would help maintain the peace that followed. It seemed fitting. Sometimes late at night, he would stand on the bridge and look at the stars. He would think about everything that had happened, everything that had been lost and gained. He would think about the message that changed everything. Since you chose war,